I'm calling for a complete and utter shutdown of all women until we can figure out what the hell is going on. Oh, friends, what a week it has been. Okay, so up until maybe I think exactly a week ago, my life was great. And then I had to be informed about the Lindsay Clancy case. And it's all been downhill ever since then. We're gonna kind of talk about that today. We're gonna talk about women in general. And we're just gonna have a discussion, okay? We're just having a discussion, all right? So I just want to figure out what's going on. Where's the vibe at? Because it seems like we've lost the plot as women, and there are a lot of voices floating around in the atmosphere. Okay, Baptists and non-Baptists talking about how men can't have an opinion because they've never been pregnant. They don't know what it's like to have the woman experience. But I thought 10 minutes ago, men could be women and they could experience pregnancy. So I don't know. I'm just trying to keep up. Like I said, we're having a discussion. Okay, so let's talk today, friends. Another thing that happened this week was that someone who I considered a very dear friend of mine insulted me deeply by saying that I'm a babe in Christ, okay? Haven't heard that phrase in a while, thrown at me, but whatever, everyone's entitled to their wrong opinion. But I don't know, maybe it's not so wrong, friends, because here I was just floating around with my little pea brain thinking that, oh yeah, of course, women have our issues, we're a little inconsistent, and we're, emotional at times, and whatever, we're people, we have our problems. Hey, you can't live with us, you can't live without us, okay? That's what I was thinking. And I also thought that women are nurturing, and women are caring, women are altruistic, women have their best intentions for people, especially our children. And it has come to my attention that is just not the case, even a little bit at all, okay? I've been informed about a lot of stats. I've been hearing about a lot of different things. And so, like I said, we're just gonna talk about all this. And so, yeah. So firstly, obviously the number one thing that everyone is talking about right now is Lindsay Clancy, the woman who admittedly, okay, can we just reiterate that for the millionth time? She admitted to killing her children. And if that wasn't bad enough, half of the women in America are supporting her. And it's just just when you think things can't get any worse here, they do. It's just when you think you've reached the bottom level of hell, you find out that there's a basement. And it's just so insane to me as a woman who loves her child. And that is just becoming more rare, it seems. Okay. And so for one reason that I think that my voice is needed or appreciated in this conversation is that, sure, I'm a woman, but also I'm a mom. And also I'm someone who, admittedly, I will never claim that I had postpartum depression. I just don't feel comfortable saying that. I just don't feel like that's true. I could have probably gone to some psychiatrists and they probably would have diagnosed me with postpartum depression if I had wanted them to, but no, I would not make that statement that I ever had that. However, if you know the lore, I could have been diagnosed with postpartum depression because my life took a serious nosedive 4 months after I had my son. And so I think that also gives me a little bit of credibility, because it's at the end of the day, who's in the driver's seat of you? Do your emotions control you, or, does your higher brain, does that part of you control you? And so I think that if I had let myself get depressed, I would have been depressed, and I could have, been really depressed, and I could have, been psychotic, or, had psychosis or whatever, had I let myself get to that point. And I think that I didn't, just by, being a Christian and leaning on Christ and just really diving into that and just realizing that, okay, at the end of the day, people come and go, life has ups and downs, but Christ is really all that I need, and he is sufficient, and he is going to fulfill, he is going to provide, all the verses, all the hymns. I was just soaking it all up, primarily in that first year after my husband passed away. And so, yeah, my life was really hard, and it's really still hard because I'm still not remarried. But never, never at any time in that whole synopsis, currently, to this day, whatever, in the immediate aftermath, did I think about killing my son. Like, that's just, like, it's just so far out of the realm of reasonability that it's almost comical. Like, it's really, like, if you're like, Virginia, why do you have such a jovial attitude while you're talking about this? It's just like, because it's really almost comical. Like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, friend. And it's just like, I can't imagine killing my own child. And it's like, even if he were stressful, and it's like, I mean, all kids are stressful to an extent. I mean, even though MJ is perfect, so you have to keep that in mind. Even though he is perfect, it's like he has his days. When he's tired, when he's hungry, he gets a little ornery, his patience gets a little thin, and therefore mine gets a little thin. And so that happens. But I mean, even if he were sick, even if he were like an actual bad kid, that's just not what you're supposed to think. Like, that's just not how that goes. And I just I don't think that that's an appropriate excuse, okay? Like, I think that needs to be said. Like, even if her kids were awful, even if they were little hellions, that's not justification. And even if she really was depressed, even if she really did have postpartum psychosis, which I'm hearing now she was never actually diagnosed with, so I don't even know where that theory line of thought came from. Oh, she had postpartum psychosis. Who said that? Like, not her doctor. So yeah, there's that. But even if she did, because I feel like that's where a lot of the support is coming from. It's like, so like I said, it seems to be like half of the women in America are supporting this woman, and hopefully that's an exaggeration. I really hope. But it seems like half of that half are saying that, like, whatever, like, she did it, she was in her right mind, wasn't in her right mind, I don't care, I'm going to support women's rights and women's wrongs. But then the other half, which seems to be a little bit more sane, is saying that, like, no, she didn't really understand what she was doing, like, she wasn't in her right mind, she would have never actually done that had she been sane and healthy, this was just, an attack, she was overcome with something, like, it wasn't really her that did it. And even that is not justification. It's like, no, being crazy is not reason, is not justification, it's not an exemption to killing your children or killing anybody, okay? Let's just get that out there. And so, yeah, I don't know where this comes from. I was thinking about this earlier. This idea that, because you're crazy, that makes it okay to then, that justifies you killing someone or doing some horrible act. And I think that comes from this mindset because, if you are a frequent viewer, then you know that I'm a soul winner. And so when you talk to people about why they think that they should go to heaven or why they don't think that they should go to hell, you often hear, well, I'm a good person, I have good intentions. That is a very common thing that people will tell you. And I think that kind of mindset is what carries over into stuff like this, because people are like, okay, well, if she had good intentions, if she didn't really mean to kill her children, if she thought that she was doing something good, then that makes it okay that she killed her kids, and she shouldn't really have to pay for the consequences of her actions because her intentions were good. You see what I'm saying? The same way that people think that, like, yeah, I know I'm a fornicator and I'm a drunk and I cheat on my taxes and I go, and I whatever, speed or whatever. I don't like using that as an example because I do that all the time. But anyways, it's just like, yeah, like, I know I'm a sinner, but my heart is pure. My intentions are good. I'm not hurting anybody, or I don't want to hurt anybody. And so that makes it okay. And so I think, they try to, like, make that connection, and it's just like, no, that's not a justification. Lindsay, deserves to fry because she's a murderer, regardless of whether or not she's crazy or she thought that she was doing something good by killing her children. The same way that all of humanity deserves to go to hell, regardless if their intentions were good. It's not about what you wanted to do, it's about what you actually did, okay? And so I think that, that's another side of it that, as a soul winner, as a Christian, I'm seeing that perspective kind of shine through, because it's like there's a lot of this overlap, and it's like, no, actually that doesn't cut the mustard, okay? That dog certainly won't hunt. And then another aspect of this that I wanted to touch on is this, whole woman thing, like women supporting other women doing bad things, which is so very problematic and toxic. And what made me want to think about this, because I was going to do a video about what I'm about to talk about a couple weeks ago, but I was like, no, that's not really what the channel is about. Like, I just want to kind of focus on the Christian stuff. But here we are, okay? And so it's just like, it's bubbled up out of me. There's too much going on. A sane woman, like, I feel like the sane, healthy women, especially like the Christian women, we have to speak up sometimes, because it's like, okay, we have to let people know that this is not all women. It's not even, a sizable chunk. Like, there are still reasonable women. I don't want to call myself good, but there are still reasonable women out there, okay, who, there's a voice of reason. And so, so what I was going to talk about a couple weeks ago was I was seeing these videos that were like talking about these young women who were like 18, 19, 20 years old, who were on TikTok being proud of having not gone to college, not having a job, and being recently married. And they were just advertising that lifestyle. They were promoting it, they were celebrating it. And these women that I had seen their videos in response to that, they were like, oh man, like these poor girls, for one, calling them girls, that's a red flag. And it's like, oh, these poor girls, like they don't know what they're doing. They're thinking that this is gonna be something that it's not, and they're advertising, and it's false advertisement, and they're leading these young women astray, and these young women, they wanna be stay-at-home wives, and they think that's gonna be easy, and it's not. Okay. Once again, I have some personal experience. I was a stay-at-home wife for the majority of my marriage. Like, I was married for 4 years, and for the majority of that time, I was just a stay-at-home wife. I didn't have any children, and so people would often come at me with this, so what do you do all day? Oh, twiddle my fingers, watch the paint dry. It's like, obviously I'm doing things, like, because having a home and a husband is plenty to take care of. But yeah, and so I think that I have some credentials to be able to speak on this as well. And so, yeah, I think that this is really toxic because, well, like I said in the beginning, it's girls, whenever we're talking about women who choose to be stay-at-home moms or choose to be stay-at-home wives. If they're 18 or 19 years old, all of a sudden they're girls again. But if they decide that they want to go to college and they want to get $100,000 worth of debt and they want to, go live their own life and they want to solo travel to Jamaica and India and Sweden, then, oh, they're young, independent women all of a sudden. Isn't that funny? Schrodinger's person, if you go in the box, then you're a girl, but if you come out of the box, then you're a woman or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that that's, it's infantilizing to talk about women who are of legal age and fully developed and can think for themselves. And if they choose to be a stay-at-home wife, not having any children yet, then that's their decision, and it should be admired and it should be uplifted, because feminism, isn't that the thing that people want to talk about? Feminism is have the ability to choose. Well, just kidding. If you didn't know that already, then it's not really about the ability to choose. It's about choosing what they want you to do. Because I was 22 when I got married, and I still had people trying to tell me like, oh, you're too young. What? What are you talking about? But yeah, and so, I find it very sinister, actually, when I see videos of older women, and not even like much older, like, because apparently according to Twitter, I'm an older woman now, because I was born in 1998, so yippee for me. I'm doing my Christian duty as an older woman, and I'm warning the younger women to not fall for this snake oil, to not fall for this trap of, don't get married early, live your life, do you, have fun, and, marriage can wait. Because in reality, what they're telling you is to whore around, which is really bad advice, if you didn't know that. Because there's nothing in marriage that's stopping you from having fun and living your life. The only thing in marriage that marriage is stopping you from is whoring around. Because you can still go on cruises, you can still go on vacation, you can still hang out with your friends, you can still live in a van, you can still have pets, you can still go to parties, like, you can do anything. You can even, and I don't recommend this, okay, I was backslidden, keep that in mind. My husband and I even went to a club one time with our friends. Like, he brought two of his friends, I brought one of my friends, And we went out bar hopping one night. We were going to different clubs and all this stuff. And like, I was having fun. He and I were dancing. Well, he and I didn't do a lot of dancing. My friend and I were doing dancing. But he was with his friends and like had a great time. And it was whatever, you know, like I said, put a caveat on that. But it's like, what exactly is holding you up? What is being married stopping you from doing? It's like, you know, people usually when they get married, they actually have more income, especially if you're not even, you know, you don't have to do the whole traditional thing. It's like, even when you're married, you could still work if your husband lets you work. And so now you just have two incomes to be able to do more stuff, you know, especially if you don't have any kids, you don't have any pets or whatever, then you have more mobility, it seems. And so, like I said, it's very sinister because it's underhanded. It's bad advice being masqueraded and packaged in the Trojan horse of, hey, I'm looking out for you. I care about you. You know, you're just really young and your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. And, you know, you might regret this later on. Friend, I saw a post on Twitter. I keep calling it Twitter. I saw a post on X that said, like, the hardest pill to swallow is the fact that, you know, you're going to regret everything that you do. And in the sense that, like, if you have kids, then you're going to regret it. If you don't have kids, you're going to regret it. If you get married, you're going to regret it. If you don't get married, you're going to regret it. If you go for that job, you're going to regret it. If you don't go for that job, you're going to regret it. You're always going to have regrets. The grass is always going to be greener on the path that you did not travel. And so you just have to learn how to live with the decisions that you make. And so I'm never going to tell people, young women, whatever, that being married is the ultimate path to happiness and that there's never any stress or strife or problems. Like, you know, you get married and all of a sudden your life is just, you know, in technicolor. That's not the case. And the Bible never even says that that's the case. However, that is the road of the least amount of regrets. And that is what the Bible teaches. The path of getting married young, keeping yourself pure and clean, and having children and guiding your home, that is God's will for you. And so therefore, that is the life of the least amount of regret, okay? And studies have even shown that, like, a life like that is more fulfilling. It is more joyful, even though it does not necessarily have more happiness. But happiness is fleeting, and maturing is realizing that happiness should never really be the goal. It's about joy, fulfillment, purpose, all that stuff. Like, that should be your goal. That's a much higher thing to attain than just happiness, which is always fleeting. And so, yes, you know, we should not be telling young women to postpone marriage when we see people that wait. Like, we see people, I'm 28. We see people that are 28, 29, 30 years old getting married because they waited and they lived their life and they did everything and they found themselves, and then they still get divorced 5-10 years later. What happened? I thought you had everything straight. I thought you were financially stable. I thought you were mature. I thought you had lived. I thought you had, you know, did everything that you said you were supposed to do. And before you got married, so that way the marriage would work. So why didn't it work? Oh yeah, because that's not God's plan. God's plan is not live your whole life and do everything before you get married, and then the marriage is the capstone. Marriage is supposed to be the cornerstone. Okay? You're always going to be changing, and a new version of yourself is going to be blooming. Okay, I am not the same person that I was when I was 22 years old. Like, the person I was the day that my husband passed away is not the same person that I was the day that we got married. And he was certainly not the same person that the day that he passed away, the day that we got married. We both changed and we grew. And in some ways we had differed, but in most ways we had grown together, because when you plant two things next to each other, they grow together. And so that is the natural order. And so it's not the natural order for you to grow up, you know, and be a beanstalk all by yourself, and then you try to find someone else to try to intertangle with when you're 40 years old. Like, that is not, if that's how it happens, whatever, sure, you know, everyone's life is not going to be the same, but that is not the ideal. That should not be what you're striving for. And so kudos to young women who have, you know, seen through the propaganda, have seen through the smoke and mirrors, and they're like, no, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get married. I'm going to, you know, this is what I'm picking, and this is the decision I'm going to make, and I'm just going to stick with it, and that's just what it's going to be. And then I also saw that some of these women were like, oh man, this idea that divorce is never an option, like, you know, that's scary because, you know, you never know what your husband thinks. You know, is divorce not an option for him? You don't know. And it's just like, once again, they try to paint this picture, like, and they're so disingenuous because they try to say that oh, these young women that are saying that being a stay-at-home wife is awesome and all you get to do is just sit around and go shopping and it's Pilates and green smoothies all day. Like, for one, that is a reality for a lot of stay-at-home wives. Like, that's just the truth. They're not painting a false picture. That's just what it is. For a lot of women, if you have a rich husband, God bless you, okay? Maybe he lets you go to Pilates and drink green smoothies and go shopping all day. That's not inaccurate. That's just your reality. But even if it's not like that, then, you know, that's just a version of what could happen. But you never find these same women saying that, oh, well, these women that are online posting about their awesome job where they work at Google or they work at Microsoft or they work at Apple and their day is just spent, you know, twiddling on, you know, the computer for 30 minutes and they send a couple emails and then they're in the cafeteria hanging out and then they're playing pool and then they're taking a nap in the, you know, company nap area and then they go home at like 5:45. Like, you never hear people saying that that's unrealistic of the career girl boss route. People understand that is just their reality. But all of a sudden, when a woman is talking about how she's a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mom and she loves it and it's fun and every day is exciting or whatever, like, oh, that's unrealistic. Like, that is just such a lie. People need to understand that what you see online is content, okay? It's never going to be the 100% full story. Like, women who are always complaining about their kids and how kids are awful and all they do is throw up and have blowouts, that is not reality. That is not accurate. Do not think that is what parenthood is. That is not a full picture. Oh, you're being real. No, you're being pessimistic. And women who portray that motherhood is all just play dates and sunshine and like decorative pancakes, that is not reality either. Okay, it's both. And so, you know, that's another thing I wanted to say. Women have been kind of stressing me out lately, more than usual. Someone had to say something about it, and I've been seeing a lot of really great takes about this, but they're mostly from men, which I don't have a problem with, but other people seem to have a problem with it. And so I figured that I would just chime in since, you know, maybe I have a little bit more credibility, but I'm sure that people in the comments will say that I'm wrong for whatever reason and I'm not qualified either, okay? But whatever. And so if you guys like this content, then please be sure to leave a like, leave a comment if you're another sane woman who does not understand a woman who could be brought to the point of killing her children and wanting to kill herself. Like, if that doesn't make any sense to you, please leave a like and leave a comment, okay? We gotta calm the seas. We gotta let people know, okay, this is just women hysteria, okay? The more I look into this trial, the more I understand why men just like put women in boxes or whatever and like told them like, you're just having a fainting fit, you're just crazy, just like go over there and sit down. It's all, the picture's starting to come together, folks, when I go on TikTok and I see these videos. But anyways, I will be talking to you guys again real soon. I will be back in Virginia for my next video. My time here in Oklahoma is all just about wrapped up, but I will be looking forward to talking to you guys again soon. Have a great rest of your day.